Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lah wa man yudlil fala hadiya lah wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah wa nashhadu anna sayyidina wa maulana Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa ala alihi wa baraka wa sallama tasliman kathiran kathira. Amma ba'd. Faqad qala Allahu ta'ala fil Qur'anil Majid, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Inna awwala baytin wudiya lin-nasi lalladhi bi Bakkata mubarakan wa hudan lil alamin. Wa qala ta'ala wa idh ja'alna al-bayta mathabatan lin-nasi wa amna. Wa an Abi Hurairah radhiyallahu ta'ala anhu qala Qala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, man hajja lillah falam yarfuth walam yafsuq raja ka yawmin waladathu ummuh, aw kama qala alayhi salatu wassalam. Respected brothers and sisters, we are in the season of Hajj. The months of Hajj are three. After the month of Ramadan, we have the month of Shawwal, Dhul-Qa'dah and Dhul-Hijjah. These are the 3 months of Hajj. Of course, the Hajj actually takes place in the month of Dhul-Hijjah, as we all know. But these are the months in which we start our preparation. After the month of Ramadan, the next big amal that is to perform after the fasting really is the Hajj. So those who are going for Hajj would have already made their preparations. We cannot go for Hajj now, even if we decide. Right? There is no time to make preparations for Hajj now. So the preparations for Hajj has to be made well in advance if we intend to go. I would like to speak a little bit about the Kaaba itself today. The Kaaba, that cube as we know it, right? And we always, when we think about the Kaaba, we think about the color black, because the covering on the Kaaba is black. Right? So we always picture it in our mind that the Kaaba is a little dark colored. Right? But whether the Kaaba was the first house to be built on earth or not is something which there is a difference of opinion amongst the scholars. Allah Azza wa Jal tells us in the Quran, Inna awwala baytin wudi'a lin-nas lalladhi bi Bakkata mubarakan wa hudan lil alamin. That the first house that was resurrected for mankind was the one that is in Makkah. So from that we get the impression that the Kaaba was the first house to be built. But Hazrat Ali karramallahu wajha tells us something different. He says that houses for living were built first. People's domestic houses where they resided in and all of that was built first. But the first house that was built for the worship of Allah Azza wa Jal was the Kaaba. And that is what Allah Azza wa Jal meant in the Quran when He says, Inna awwala baytin lin-nas, that the first house that was resurrected, the first house that was built for man, was that which is in Bakkah or Makkah. My dear brothers and sisters, the whole world when it was created, the whole earth was covered with water. There was no spot of land on the earth. The entire thing was covered with water. And then the first spot to appear in this mass of water, the very first spot to appear was the spot on which the Kaaba was built. And really and truly it is the center of the earth. The first spot to appear on the earth was that. And the Jews used to brag and they used to boast about Baitul Maqdis or Baitul Muqaddas. And it is a sacred place. As we know in Islam, it is the third sacred mosque that there is. The first is the Baitul Haram in Makkah, and then we have Masjid Nabawi, and then the third most sacred place is Baitul Maqdis in Jerusalem. And it was the first Kaaba that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to face in that direction to pray in the early days of Islam. And they used to boast about it. And then Allah Azza wa Jal revealed, Fihi ayatum bayyinat wa maqamu Ibrahim. Allah Azza wa Jal then told us, or revealed to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, no, there are clear signs and the changing of the direction of the Qibla took place. And for those who are going to visit, you would also get the opportunity to visit Masjid al-Qiblatain. right? Where the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was actually praying salah, facing, in putting it in Trinidad terms, facing the western direction. And then when the law and the ayat came, the revelation came to face the direction of Qibla, he had to make 180 degrees turn to face, in Trinidad, eastern direction. Right? In Medina, where the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was, the direction of Qibla is south, and Jerusalem was to the north. So it was a whole 180 degrees turn to face the direction. And that is why in that masjid, it is known as Masjidul Qiblatain, the masjid that has two Qiblas, because the Prophet ﷺ was in actual salah there when the order came and he had to turn. So you go to the masjid, you go see, just like how there is a mihrab on this side, where the imam faces the direction of Qibla, there is a mihrab on the other side as well. Right? But salah is prayed towards the Kaaba. And the Jews used to brag and boast about it, and then Allah will reveal, no, there are clear signs in the Kaaba. Maqam Ibrahim, the footsteps of our Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, whilst constructing the Kaaba, is there evident to show the clear signs of Allah. The well of Zamzam, clear signs as well, which is within the precincts of the Haram. So much signs are there for us to see. So after that revelation, the Jews had no argument again, because it was clear that the Kaaba was really, the Qibla in Haram was really the Kaaba that need to be faced. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah revealed in the Quran, وَمَنْ دَخَلَهُ كَانَ آمِنًا. Whoever enters it is safe, is granted security and safety. What is this type of safety that the Allah is speaking about? Some commentators are of the opinion that whoever performs his salah there, his deeds there properly, he performs his salah, he performs his hajj, and it is performed properly, then he will be saved from the fire of Jahannam. One commentary, that safety that Allah guarantees in the Quran is safety from the fire of Jahannam for those who enter the Haram and they perform their salah and they perform their hajj and their tawaf properly, then for them is safety from the fire of Jahannam. Some scholars are of the opinion that even if a person commits murder, and he is in the Haram, he cannot be touched. Why? Because that is the safety that Allah guarantees for any individual who enters the Haram. Hazrat Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, Hazrat Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, both of them used to say that even if we find the killers of our fathers present in the Haram, then we cannot do them anything, we cannot touch them. They are safe as long as they are within the precincts of the Haram. No one could interfere with them. And you would remember this story many years ago. Now unless somebody interferes with you within the precincts of the Haram, then you are allowed to retaliate. That is provided the act is done within the precincts of the Haram. Right? You are allowed to retaliate within the Haram. So many years ago when the Shiites tried to invade the Kaaba, and they went in, right? They went in with their arms and ammunition and that kind of thing. They tried to invade and take over the Kaaba, right? And then eventually the security forces had forced them, and they went down inside the well of the Zamzam. For those who had performed Hajj in the earlier days, they would know that there were some steps going down to the Zamzam well, and the Shiites had gone in there to hide, and then they had to flush them out by flooding the Zamzam well. So they were forced to come out, and then they were taken into custody or shot or whatever. Allah knows best what had happened at that time, right? So they had invaded the sanctuary of the Kaaba, and the wrong act that they committed was within the precincts of the Haram. So you are allowed to take retaliation even if it is within the precincts of the Haram. They weren't accorded that security and that safety to say that we are in the Haram, so you cannot do us anything. No, because the violation was done within the Haram. And we have to be careful, because even till this Ramadan gone, up to this Ramadan, we know throughout the years, you know, the Shiites, the Rafidi Shiites would walk with little bottles of urine to throw at the grave of Hazrat Abu Bakr and Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala an. That is their practice. That is why sometimes when you go to give salams to the Rasul in Medina, you would find that the guards are chasing you away from the burglar-proofing that there is. Not that they want to chase you away, but there are people who do things that are very despicable. Right? And the throwing of urine at the graves of Hazrat Abu Bakr and Hazrat Umar Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala, Hazrat Umar Farooq radiallahu ta'ala anhuma, is something that they still do till today. And it is for that reason that they were banned. They were disbanded from going to the haram. Right? It's only a few years ago they started to allow them to go back again. Right? But they're still up to their same mischief. In this Ramadan gone by, right, a Rafizi Shia dressed as a woman entered Masjid Nabawi. Right? This Ramadan we're talking about a few months ago. Right? Entered the ladies section in Masjid Nabawi dressed as a woman, and he went in and he started distributing some sweets. Right? Eventually he was held. Right? The security, the women's security that they were there inside recognized what is happening and saw him distributing sweets, and they held him. When the sweets were checked, they were tainted with a chemical. They were made in Iran. They were tainted with a chemical that causes women to become infertile. And that is why he was giving it to young girls, so that they wouldn't be able to have children later on in their life. Right? My dear brothers and sisters, so you could see that the threat, remember, the Rafidi Shia are those who consider causing harm to Sunni Muslims is ibadat. To cause harm to Sunni Muslims, to them is ibadat. And we don't want to get into the politics of the world, but the battle that is going on in Syria right now is really Rafizi Shia, that is Assad and his regime, against the Sunni Muslims. That is why the areas that are being bombarded and the areas where people are being killed are the Sunni areas. Right? So we have to be aware of what is going on around us and know what is happening in the world. My dear brothers and sisters, we were speaking about Hajj. So we will go back there a little bit on the Kaaba. Right? Allah Azza wa Jal, وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا بَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا. And remember, tells us in the Quran, Allah Azza wa Jal tells us, and remember when we made the house, the Kaaba, مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ وَأَمْنًا. We make it a masaba, a place of return. That is why every time we pray Salah, some of the commentators say, when we pray Salah, we turn to the Kaaba. Wherever in the world you are, you turn to the Kaaba. Others are of the opinion that no, it is a place of return, that once you go for Hajj or you go for Umrah, the desire and the longing is always there to return. In the hearts of the individuals, it is always there to return. Some ahadith informs us, some words from the Tabi'een and the Sahaba tells us about that person who has wealth should return to the Kaaba at least once in 5 years. He should return. And it is from there the Saudi government took their indication and their clue that people, they would give visas once every 5 years for people who want to come and perform Hajj. Looking at the wording of the companions of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is from there they took that and they said, no, every 5 years we will allow you to come and perform Hajj. Now it was not something that was enforced, because people used to go, right, every year, every 2 years, people going for Hajj, especially from the Western world, because we could hardly make up our quota. Countries like Indonesia and India and those parts of the world, Malaysia, they always have their full quota of people to go for Hajj. We hardly make up our quota in the Western world, the amount they are allowed to come from. And that is why there was no check-in. But this year, because of the construction that is going on, because of the building work that is going on, they are really enforcing the 5-year ban on people. That is why they are asking to see your passports. If you go with a new passport, like many people used to do, get a new passport so you'll get a visa, right? They want to see your old passport as well, right, to ensure that you did not go in the last 5 years. My dear brothers and sisters, the returning to the house of Allah is a desire that is there. Once you go one time, it is always there. Some say the word mathabatan, coming from the word thawab, refers to blessing, because every good deed that is done is multiplied 100,000 times in the sacred land. Right? And just as how good deeds are multiplied 100,000 times, we need to be aware of the fact that sins are also multiplied. Right? Sins are also multiplied. So we have to be very careful that when we go to perform the Hajj, or we are in the sacred land, that we behave ourselves. That we behave ourselves. It might sound simple to behave ourselves, but it is not as easy. You see, the trials and tribulations of journey, it gets to us from time to time. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a hadith narrated by Imam Muslim says, "As-safaru kit'atu min al-azab," that traveling and journeying is part of punishment. So when you are traveling, you see the true colors of people showing up. When a man is under pressure, luggage, delay in flight, cannot get food and drink, cannot find a washroom to use, different things that we go through. You're not feeling well, you're aching, and you have to tote luggage and all of that. You see the true colors of an individual. That is once when a person said he knew someone, Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala, and asked him, did you ever travel with that individual? Did you ever do journey with that individual? You never did journey with the individual, and you don't really know the individual. Right? And when you go for Hajj, sometimes you are amazed at the actions you see coming from people who are rubbing shoulders with you in Salah 5 times a day in Masjid. Very punctual in prayer, and sometimes you see their character being exposed. Right? And to expose is another meaning of the word suffer. Right? To expose, because it exposes your character when you travel, when you're on journey. So my dear brothers and sisters, for those who are going to perform the Hajj, be very careful. Be very careful when you go. You're in the state of Ihram, you're in the blessed land. That is why companions of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say that we prefer to commit 70 sins outside of the Haram than to commit one sin within the Haram. They prefer to commit 70 sins outside the vicinity of the Haram rather than commit one sin within the Haram. We have to be very, very careful. And that is why people who are going for Hajj, sometimes in the rush to touch the black stone, the amount of people that we have to pull and push, it is amazing. It is amazing. To touch the black stone is desirable, mustahab. To cause harm to Muslim, that pushing and pulling and thugging that you see going on is haram. But to touch the black stone is only mustahab. You could stay from a distance, kiss your hand, right, and indicate it towards the black stone. That is sufficient. But the desire to want to touch the black stone is there in every individual, because the black stone would be a witness on the day of judgment that everybody that came and touched it. I am sure with Allah's mercy, those who indicated and sent, as we would say, a flying kiss towards it, right, would also be rewarded with that. Right? Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala had said, and he was one of the companions who was very, very strict. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala had what we call a Jabbari temperament. He was the type of person, he don't ask too much a question. He does let his sword do most of the talking. Right? That was the type of, just like Hazrat Prophet Musa alayhi salam, Jabbari temperament. Right? They never used to fool around and that kind of thing too much. Right? So Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala who was very, very much against idol worship. Right? When he kissed the black stone, he said that you are only a stone. And if I did not see the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam kissing you, I would not have kissed you. But he saw the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam kissing the black stone. The black stone that we have today, you look at it, there are about 6 or 7 small particles that is fixed into the area of the black stone. The whole area of the black stone, there are 6 or 7 little particles. So if you get the opportunity to kiss, you're looking to kiss one of those pieces. Right? Not anywhere in the black stone. Right? If you get the opportunity to reach there, right, that is what you're looking to kiss. And it's not just any and anywhere in the black stone. My dear brothers and sisters, so Allah Azza wa Jal says in the Quran, وَإِذْ يَرْفَعُ إِبْرَاهِيمُ الْقَوَائِدَ مِنَ الْبَيْتِ وَإِسْمَعِيلُ. And remember when Ibrahim and his son Ismail were raising the foundation of the Kaaba. Ibrahim alayhi salam was the chief carpenter or the mason. Prophet Ismail alayhi salam was his helper. Or we would say the mortar boy, the person who would bring the bricks and mix the mortar and that kind of thing. Right? So one Prophet Ibrahim is the chief carpenter. Prophet Ismail alayhi salam is the mason or his assistant. The plan was drawn by Jibreel alayhi salam, who came with the tip of his wing and he indicated where the Kaaba is to be built. and the order is given by Allah Azza wa Jal. The order to build was given by Allah. The architect and the one showing the plan was Jibreel. The chief carpenter was Prophet Ibrahim, and his helper was Prophet Ismail. Is there any place more blessed that we want to be? Is there any place more blessed on this earth that we would desire to be? My dear brothers and sisters, this is definitely the most virtuous place on the earth. Hazrat Sahal ibn Sa'd radiallahu ta'ala says that Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam was 100 years old at that time, at the time of building of the Kaaba. Prophet Ismail alayhi salam was 30 years old. The Kaaba was rebuilt many times. Many times the Kaaba was rebuilt. There are some scholars who are of the opinion that the Kaaba was built approximately 2,000 years before the creation of man. Some say it was built by Allah's command, kun fayakun, be, and it was. And angels had no part in the actual building of the Kaaba. Some of the muhaddithin tells us that Adam alayhi salam built it, and he built it with rocks coming from 5 different mountains. Mountains in Lebanon, Mount Sinai, Mount Zaita, Mount Judi, and Mount Hira. From 5 different mountains, rocks were taken for the building of the Kaaba. One narration says that Adam alayhi salam did the foundation, and then the Baytul Ma'mur, that is directly above the Kaaba in the heavens, Baytul Ma'mur, was brought down, and during the flood of Noah alayhi salam, it was taken up back again. Baytul Ma'mur, for us to understand the amount of angels that there are. Baytul Ma'mur is the Kaaba of the angels in the heavens. 70,000 angels make tawaf of Baytul Ma'mur every day. 70,000 angels make tawaf of Baytul Ma'mur every day. Now 70,000 is a little bit, because when we go for Hajj, you will have at least 1 million and 1.5 million people making tawaf every day. Right? After from the 10th of Zil Hijjah, right? After you do your Arafah, your Mina, Arafah, Muzdalifah, and you come back to Mina on the 10th, right? You would find that that is the time you have to do your compulsory tawaf, right? What we know as your tawaf was ziyarah, right? At that tawaf, you would find 1 million and 1.5 million people making tawaf every day, right? So 70,000 angels making tawaf of Baytul Ma'mur every day, and they are not going to get the opportunity to do tawaf again until Qiyamah. Could we imagine the amount of angels they are looking after the affairs of the world? Created and always in the obedience of Allah Azza wa Jal. Only doing those things that Allah Azza wa Jal ordered them to do and nothing else. So much so that the angel Israfil, who was created for the purpose of what? Blowing the trumpet in order to bring in the day of judgment. Since the time of his creation, he was created and he is standing with the trumpet in his hand, waiting to blow. That is the purpose of his creation. Waiting for that order from Allah Azza wa Jal to blow the trumpet. Right? That is all he was ordered to do. There are angels that are created that are in sijda all the time. Nothing else but sijda. Those who are in ruku all the time, only created for that. Different things that angels were created for. They do not do anything except that which they are ordered to do. They do not have, like human beings, feelings in our heart that I wonder if this is good, or I wonder if this is bad, or I'm tired. They don't have those type of feelings in their heart. That is why the angels that are created to dish out the punishment in the fire of Jahannam, even though they would be seeing people under much distress, and to them it is irrelevant. They are carrying out the order of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Their order is to give punishment, they are giving punishment. It is not about feelings and what I want to do and what I think and all that kind of thing. Right? Human beings are, that is why human beings are superior to angels. Why? Because we are given that choice in the matters that we have to do. And even though that choice is there, and even though shaitan is breathing down our throats all the time, sitting on our hearts to inject his poison all the time, yet still the Muslims would make themselves available in the masjid for their salah. Yet still the Muslim, even though they might be going through difficulty, would find the extra change in their pocket to give out in charity, Yet still they would keep visiting the house of Allah. They would save their money and they would visit the house of Allah Azza wa Jal. They would perform the Hajj. They would perform the Umrah. As difficult as times may be, you never hear that this year there were a little bit of people to perform Hajj. You never hear that. As difficult, all the economic downturn that there is in the earth, you never hear that, okay, look, this year there was less people to perform Hajj. Right? People would keep visiting and visiting time and time again. And you go to perform Hajj, you go to perform Umrah during the month of Ramadan, it is the same thing. It is just like Hajj. So true the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Al-Umratu fi Ramadan ka hajjin ma'i. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, performing Umrah in Ramadan is like performing Hajj with me. And really and truly, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the ulama have mentioned it is the blessings. Right? Performing Umrah in Ramadan is equivalent to performing Hajj with the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is the blessings. But really and truly, the crowd is the same as well. Right? The crowd is just as intense as it is during the months and the days of Hajj. My dear brothers and sisters, the Kaaba again, some said it was built by the sons of Adam, Hazrat Sheet alayhi salam. Some says it was rebuilt by the Amalika and the Jurhum. These are tribes who are descendants of Prophet Nuh alayhi salam. Because remember, during the flood of Nuh alayhi salam, the Kaaba was destroyed. Right? Or according to some, it was Baytul Ma'mur that was taken up. So it was rebuilt at that time as well. And then we know it was built by Qusay, that tribe from the forefathers of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, approximately 5 generations before the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was about 25 years old, it was rebuilt by the Quraysh. And we would have heard that story many times. The Quraysh wanted to rebuild the Kaaba. But they only wanted to use halal money. Just like when people nowadays, when they want to go for Hajj, they want to ensure that all the money that they are utilizing to go for Hajj is totally halal money. You don't want to have any mix-ups with that. You don't want to have any little bit of other money getting mixed up with that. You want to ensure that it is only halal money that you're using. Otherwise, you're just taking a journey and you're making a suffering to go through a lot of difficulties and you mightn't get no reward. So people want to ensure that there is halal money. So to the Quraysh, they wanted to ensure that every cent that they were using was halal money. And they didn't have enough money. That is why the Kaaba ended up as a cube. Really and truly, the semicircular wall that you see on one side of the Kaaba is also part of the Kaaba. But they did not have enough money to complete the entire construction, so they sufficed with the cube that we see today. Right? So that semicircular wall, which is known as the Hijr of the Kaaba, that semicircular wall is also within the precincts of the Kaaba. And if you want to pray in the Kaaba, then you try to get in that area and pray. The guards will allow people to go in from time to time. Right? You would see people praying in there. Right? Hopefully you could get the chance to go in as well. Inshallah, you make the right intention, you make a lot of dua. Right? You could get the opportunity to go in as well. So therefore, when you are making tawaf, you cannot take a shortcut and say that you're only going around the cube. You have to go around that semicircular wall as well. Otherwise, your tawaf is incomplete. So the Quraysh did not have enough money to build the Kaaba, and that is why they built it in that form that it is there, the cube that we see. And another change that they made to the Kaaba was they removed one of the doors of the Kaaba. The Kaaba had 2 doors. One in which you could enter, that is one that you see today, and there was one on the other side as well. So you could go into the Kaaba and exit on the other side. The Quraysh had only put in one door, again because of lack of funds. And then because they wanted to control the amount of people going to the Kaaba, they raised the door about a meter, about 5 feet off the ground. So that not anybody could go into the Kaaba. You have to get a ladder to reach there to get into the Kaaba. Right? That is another change that they do. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told Hazrat Aisha Siddiqa radiallahu ta'ala anha, if it was not the early stage in which the Quraysh had accepted Islam, because remember Islam was new, if it was not that early, then I would have demolished and rebuilt the Kaaba in the original form that it was built by Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. I would have rebuilt it in that form. And that is why after the demise of the Rasul Sallallahu, the Prophet Sallallahu did not do it because he feared that people are now accepting Islam and they would feel that what was the need to change and all of that. So he didn't interfere with it. But then after him, the companions of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they said that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam wanted to do it, and Islam is now embedded in everybody within the Arabian Peninsula and the neighboring countries. So they went ahead and they broke the Kaaba and they built it in the original form. And then Yazid came along and he said that the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never did that, so he broke it again and he built it back in the cube form. And then some kings came after that, and every time a king changed and that kind of thing, everybody want to make their impression. Everybody want to say that they did something. It goes on even till today. Right? Till today it is going on. Every time a new king comes, they want to make their mark, they want to put down something. Whether it is for the betterment of the people or just to say that I did this, I will be remembered. For whatever, Allah knows best, Allah knows what their intention, Allah bless them for the work that they are doing. Right? So too, it started to, people started interfering with the Kaaba, breaking and building, breaking and building, breaking and building, until it was the time of Harun Rashid. And he also wanted to do some work on the Kaaba, and Imam Malik passed the fatwa and the verdict that the Kaaba has become a toy for the kings, so leave it as it is. Right? The fatwa was passed by Imam Malik, and the Kaaba was left as it is today. Right? That is in the same cube form, the form that it was at the time of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, even though the original Kaaba is bigger than that, as we have mentioned. My dear brothers and sisters, every day on the Kaaba, 120 mercies descend. 60 of those mercies are for those who are doing tawaf. That is why the most important thing that we could do when we go to perform Hajj or Umrah is tawaf. Perform tawaf as much as you can, because there is no other part of the world that you could do tawaf. Unless, of course, you are Qadiani, you could probably go to Qadian and do tawaf around the grave of Mirza Ghulam, or you could probably go around Ayatollah Khomeini's grave, as the Shiites do, and they perform tawaf there. Or there's many people in India and Pakistan do grave worshipping and they're doing tawaf around grave. Right? Our place of tawaf is the Kaaba, no other part of the world. Right? Kaaba is the place for our tawaf. Right? So when you go to Makkah, then the action that you want to be involved most in is tawaf. 60 of those mercies that descend on the Kaaba on a daily basis are for those who are doing tawaf. 40 is for those who are praying. And 20 of those mercies are for those who are just sitting looking at the Kaaba. Nothing else they are doing. They are just sitting looking at the Kaaba. 20 of the mercies of that is for them. So the first thing we want to be involved in is tawaf. Tawaf is walking around the Kaaba 7 times. That is 1 tawaf. 7 circuits around the Kaaba, that is 1 tawaf. You pray your 2 rakat salatul tawaf behind Maqam Ibrahim or anywhere in the masjid, 1 tawaf is finished. Try to get yourself involved in that. That is why it is so important that people going for Hajj and Umrah, I tell them, I say, you're going for Hajj, then after the month of Ramadan, you should be walking half an hour every day. Half an hour every day you should be walking if you are going for Hajj. Because just to get from your hotel to the masjid is a 15-20 minutes walk. Right? That's if you are the close masjid, if you are the close hotels. You understand? If you are the further hotels, it's a little longer than that. Right? So you have to prepare yourself physically, because Hajj is an ibadah that takes a toll on the physical self as well as on your finances. Whereas zakat only takes your finances into consideration, and salah takes your physical action into consideration. Hajj is a test on your physical ability as well as your monies and your finances. Both of them are going to be tried and tested when you are going for Hajj. Right? So these are the things that we need to focus on when we are going for the Hajj. My dear brothers and sisters, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned in hadith that when Hajr Aswad, or the black stone, descended from the heavens, it was lily white, white as milk, pure white. But because as the years passed by, the touching of the black stone, this effect of the sins of man has turned it black. So why did the black stone get black? Because of the effect of the sins of man. Just the touching of the black stone and it became black over the years. Could you imagine? And the same thing Allah Azza wa Jal tells us about our hearts. Kalla bal rana ala qulubihim ma kana yaksibun. Right? Every time you commit a sin, the hadith tells us, a black spot forms on the heart. You make tawbah and repent to Allah, then it is washed away. But we commit sin and we commit sin and we commit sin and we do not take the time off to do tawbah, then the entire heart becomes black. The entire thing becomes black. And it is a part of the body. As the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, that in the body, inna fil jasadi la mudghatan, idha saluhat saluhal jasadu kullu, wa idha fasadat fasadal jasadu kullu, ala wa hiya al qalb. In the body, there is a lump of flesh. That once that is good, then everything is good. And once that becomes bad, then everything becomes bad. Ala wa hiya al qalb. Know very well that this is the heart. So we have to learn. We have to learn. We have to keep trying to purify, to purge our hearts all the time of all the diseases that there is, lying and jealousy and that evil and that wickedness that we feel in ourselves all the time. Keep purging and purging ourselves, begging Allah. Those who are going for Hajj, beg Allah for forgiveness before you get there. You're going to a sacred land. Those who are not going, we are coming up to sacred time, the month of Dhul Hijjah. In about a week's time or so, we will be looking for the moon. And then the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, the best time of the year. The most blessed days of the year. Fasting one day is equivalent to fasting for an entire year. Fasting on the day of Arafah, the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, is equivalent to fasting for 2 years. Prophet ﷺ said, 1 year's sin would be forgiven, a year gone, and the year coming sins would be forgiven. Fasting on those days is very important. Reading Tahajjud Salah in these nights is equivalent to doing ibadah on the night of Laylatul Qadr. Right? Very, very important time that we are coming up to, but we have to learn to take the time off, to utilize this time. Just as how we mentioned that this time is blessed and sacred, like how Makkah and Medina is blessed and sacred, committing sin there is multiplied as well. So too in the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, we should try to refrain from sin, be involved in our ibadah. May Allah Azza wa Jal bless us and guide us all. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
Although I never saw his face, so beautiful bestowed.